Alright, and we're back. So we're gonna switch up our costume a little bit just for fun. We'll use the stars gear. I think this is a pretty good design, to be honest. I don't mind it. I think it's a little weird, like what point do this shoulder pad serve, and like she's a cop, special forces, but she's not wearing any kind of body armor. She's just wearing like a t-shirt, you know. It's a little odd. But, you know, whatever. Resident Evil is a little odd as a series, so hard to complain about that. Let's see what we have here. Not a whole lot going on there. This next part can be pretty bullshitty, and it kind of comes back to just really poorly thought out design. And it's also a kind of a huge ruination of an iconic moment and phrase from the original that was very half-heartedly slapped somewhere else for no apparent reason at all, other than quote-unquote creative differences, creative liberty.
Nikolai, how are we doing?
The town's crawling with those freaks. No chance of fighting our way out of the city. Why is she here?
She's hoping to get the trains running again.
Bad time to start carrying dead weight.
I'm not really sure what Nikolai's motivation here for this whole like making a fuss about Jill is, especially how he, you know, maybe he really does legitimately underestimate her in the beginning, but by the end he seems to have a pretty good respect for her, you know, even if he is still an asshole about it.
Oh, come on. Not again.
It's meetings after.
Hey,
I'll buy you some time.
So I think this is a cool moment of Jill to do this. This is very brave and very heroic of her, and I love it as a character moment. Ah, there it is. Did I get the... I don't know if I got the... I think I got it, yeah. So, this is a really shitty... Like, did you even catch it there? You know, like, she said the line. But, if you... I mean, especially on Inferno, I mean, you will get punched to death right there as she says it. And it's like... What kind of poorly thought out design decision was that to like give her her iconic line in that moment, but like waste it when you can like not only not hear it, but be punched to death during it, which completely takes the impact out of it. And another moment here where Nemesis can just kind of be invalidated as a threat entirely just by using that explosive barrel. If you had to fight him here, it would probably not be the most fair thing in the world, but at least it would be more interesting. But I can understand why that they didn't do that. Again, it's just one of those no-win scenarios and just feels like just not a really well thought out thing. It's also really it's also, in my opinion, really poorly thought out how Nemesis can track you. Like, how does Nemesis know where you're going to come out of these sewers? Like, that shouldn't be possible, and yet he seems to know exactly where you're going to come out. I mean, like, does he have a map of the city? I don't understand how he knows exactly where she could possibly come out of these fucking sewers from. But that's, you know, me nitpicking at that point, I'll be honest. This section is disappointing. Because it's entirely linear, and while the Hunter Gammas are theoretically an interesting opponent, functionally they're not, because you can invalidate them with grenade launcher rounds, which are coincidentally introduced in this very section. It is interesting that they are an instant kill mechanic, so there's no point carrying health. I think technically you could survive their tail slam, but I've never done it. It tends to kill you instantly. So I always just shoot them. It is more challenging and interesting to try and dodge them. I'm not good at it, and I don't see a reason to become good at it, so I'm not. I haven't. But it is possible, and I admit it might make this section a little bit more interesting. But considering how useless the grenade launcher is against Nemesis, it just doesn't do a lot of damage against him. In general, I don't care. I really kind of like this redesign of them. it makes them very interesting and unique as an enemy type. But again, they're kind of a non-threat because, you know, like you're witnessing it. I mean, and I don't know how they could make them more interesting. I think probably putting them in more environments and mixing them with other enemies rather than this design approach that they seem to have here where, you know, it's almost like a roller coaster ride where it's like, all right, now we get the brain sucker section and now we get the hunter gamma section. This kills me too, this grenade launcher. I don't understand why they nerfed this grenade launcher. It has like a broken component. It takes a while to reload, but boosts strong damage output. I think actually that file I picked up explains why this thing is trash. This is a refurbished model, and the chamber needs to be manually cycled between shots. I don't know why they decided to introduce this nerf to the grenade launcher, where it's like slower than it would otherwise be. That seems dumb and unnecessary and a really poor decision because it keeps you from dodging, and so it makes the grenade launcher even less useful than it already is against Nemesis. Because you can't dodge, so if you're caught, you know, if you try to use it, he can punish you really hard for doing it. And in his bipedal stages, he'll just sidestep the grenades most of the time anyway. Yeah, so one flame round will more or less kill these things. And even if they survive, you know, they survive with nothing, so... these enemies might be more interesting if they didn't immediately give you the answer to the equation, right? If they didn't immediately give you the answer to the problem. But again, that seems to be kind of the overarching design decision with this game, where they introduce a problem but give you the solution immediately or even ahead of time, like on the higher difficulties. You know, they compensate for the increased difficulty by just giving you a magnum and extra inventory space off the bat, which I don't think makes the game more interesting. It just creates more uninteresting situations where it's like, okay, there's more of these tentacle assholes now that are terrible enemies, but they gave me a magnum, so I guess I'm just supposed to use the magnum to kill them and theoretically invalidate them, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm being too critical of sort of basic game design, but that's only because this game is overall so disappointing. If this game were better overall, it had more content, it was more faithful to the original, I might let this shit slide. But it seems like bad game design on top of, you know, poor fan service and faithfulness to the original. And again, we kind of come back to how linear this game is. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. We come back to how linear this game is. You know, once you hit this part, the game is really super heavily on rails until the hospital, where it opens up a little bit again. But beyond that, you spend most of the game on rails. And when you get to the lab at the end, that's very linear. A lot of set pieces, a rehashed boss fight, and a really the worst boss fight by far. And then a boss fight that is like alright depending on your difficulty, and possibly like virtually impossible depending on your difficulty. I personally have never fought him fairly, Nemesis Final Form on Inferno, but I've heard that he is a motherfucker. I mean, I just rocket launched him, to be honest, so... I guess I could also just run past these things. Oh god, what the fuck? It survived, dude. What the fuck? That was close. I guess I could just run past these things when they're on fire. I don't know, I kind of like watching them burn and shooting them. I like to kill things, so... I guess we'll just run past this one for fun. Yeah. I always find it interesting that in 2 and 3, flames don't damage you as the player. It's kind of an interesting choice. The only interesting thing they do with the Hunter Gamma is actually coming up, where it'll stick its mandibles through a door, which I find like really genuinely interesting that they do that. That's super cool. Do you... Are you the same one I have to deal with later? I don't know. Again, this feels kind of like a waste of time. It's such a non-puzzle. You just wonder, like, why are they even wasting your time with it? At least the chess puzzle in 2, which was sort of like this, could take a little bit more thought to figure out, but this is so straightforward, it just makes you question why you're doing it at all. Yeah, I don't think another one spawns. We do need this again, though. Like, the most interesting thing they do with it is this optional room here, but, like, why would you not go in there? Is there... I mean, what do you stand to lose by not going in there? I don't know. If it was on the other end... But that's the thing, is this place isn't designed well. Like, they couldn't put it anywhere else. Where else would they put that door? I don't know. This is kind of one of those parts where I have to question Nemesis's efficiency as a killer. And so ironically, his efficiency at tracking you is like godlike, but then in terms of killing you, he's just yet again incompetent. Like, how he knows that we're gonna come out here is fucking beyond me. Right, like, and then look at this. Why doesn't he just kill us right here? Hell, I feel like he could drop us just back down the ladder and it would break our ankles or something. And then here, like, there is such a clear amount of time that he could have used that flamethrower. And even after you start running, he, you know, like, he just takes his sweet time. And I don't understand. You know, like, this should have been an actual chase sequence where you actually have to worry about him, but it's not. It's theoretically that, but there's nothing in your way in terms of level design or enemy placement that actually impedes your progress significantly enough for him to be a threat at the speeds that he moves. I just am completely baffled by the design here. And if we haven't invalidated him enough, I mean, we're going to do so real hard in a moment with these grenades that we have that will kind of effectively never be useful again, so we're definitely going to use them. Like, the fact that, yet again, you can wait here as long as you want and he'll never break through until you move up. It's just one of those things where it's like, why? What's the motivation for waiting until you're already here? You know, like, it's just such... And then there's no point shooting him. I actually don't know whether or not shooting him affects the boss fight, but I don't think that it does. I'd be hard-pressed to imagine. You can actually down him here, which is interesting, but I don't know what the point of doing so is. Like, rather than this being any kind of explorable environment with an actual puzzle element or anything like that, it's just another set piece where, you know, I feel like I can wait here forever, and that's as far as the fire will spread, because Nemesis is just fucking around waiting for us to get to this ladder so he can jump up and, you know, be sort of competent. He almost got us there. I'm not sure how he didn't. He does it again, you know, and again he kind of takes his time on this. And he seems less interested in actually trying to burn Jill than burning this place down, which maybe shows, like, long-term planning, that he's like, yeah, I'm gonna burn this whole fucking place to the ground, but, like, he could have just killed us already, you know what I mean? I just don't get his motivations here. Nemesis just seems like such a baffling and incompetent character in the story. It's hard to take him seriously. And such an annoyance. Again, either an annoyance or a non-factor in gameplay that it's hard to take him seriously. And this boss fight's kind of a joke. Again, grenades. Even on Inferno, the strategy kind of just comes down to grenades. Just throw grenades at him. This is perhaps the best boss fight, simply because of how unique it is. But it's just, again, it's disappointing, right? Because it's the only time you really get to fight him using this thing. Now, the fact that he turns the flamethrower into a fucking, like, flaming explosive hammer, that's badass. This cannot be gotten around. It's just a fact, right? It's incredibly badass. But other than that, man, he's just kind of a joke. Honestly, the hardest part here, to be completely honest, is collecting all of the items before you kill him. Like, making sure that you collect all the items before you kill Nemesis is legitimately the hardest part of this entire fight. Wrecked. Is there anything over here? Now, he has this instant kill move that is a little bit difficult to deal with on the higher difficulties because of how incredibly fast he moves. But on the lower difficulties, it's not much of an issue. Oh, and also he's got some pretty bullshit tracking on it, to be honest with you. Gotcha. And that's the fight, you know? It's kind of a joke. I think it's a perfectly sufficient boss fight, but because it's the only time you get to fight him like this, and because the chase with the flamethrower is such just a pointless, scripted, Uncharted sequence, it just doesn't feel satisfying. I think if you had actually been truly running from him, with the zombies and stuff in your way, and that being, like, difficult, and, you know, him constantly being right on your ass, and you just simply didn't have a chance to fight back because of the environment was always against you, I think it would have been a much more interesting fight, because then you finally got the chance to fight back. And that kind of opens up the door for the greater design I think this game should have had. This game should have been not open world, but it should have had kind of an Evil Within 2 thing going on, where Jill could explore pretty much all of the city. Like a huge city section that she could explore openly, like a Metroidvania, collecting key items and moving about the city, doing what she needed to do in various different tasks for people, saving civilians, working with the UBCS, you know, investigating Umbrella, investigating the Nemesis, you know, any kind of interesting thing she could have been doing in the city. And Nemesis would chase you, right? Jill would be free and open to explore the city however she wanted, and so would Nemesis, right? He would stalk you from the rooftops. If you were quiet and you didn't use your gun and you didn't attract attention, he wouldn't find you as often. If you were constantly fighting enemies and using your gun and causing explosions, he'd track you really easily. And depending on where you are, he would choose a weapon, right? He would have his whole arsenal. He'd have the chain gun, he'd have the rocket launcher, he'd have the flamethrower. Give him a fucking chainsaw, I don't care, man, do whatever. Give him an arsenal of weapons he can choose from that he will use dynamically based on the situation, right? If you find yourself in a tight, enclosed space, he might use the flamethrower because it would be the most efficient means of getting rid of you. Or if you're in a big open area, he'd use the rocket launcher to try and snipe you from a distance. Or I don't know when he would use the chainsaw, probably also in like kind of a tight enclosed area, but just giving Nemesis that freedom to move about and having the player influence when the Nemesis shows up and how the Nemesis fights, and letting the player dynamically react to him and choose whether or not to fight him. And the benefit of fighting him would be, you know, he fucks off for a while as he needs to repair himself, and he wouldn't come back for a while, and he would drop different upgrades depending on maybe what weapon he was using or where you fought him or how many times you killed him, any number of factors like that. There was so much they could have done that would have been interesting that unfortunately they just don't do in this game. You know, instead it's this super linear gameplay experience, this kind of roller coaster where Nemesis is only at his best for like, you know, 10 minutes and then he's never there again. It's just kind of upsetting. Let's see. Let's swap the grenade launcher rounds here. Yeah. This is a good moment, but it's so short-lived, you know, just like the rest of the game. It's so short-lived. I kind of wish we could get more. It is tragic in a way, because we know what Jill doesn't know. But, again, it's so short-lived.
When we get out, there's gotta be a lot to do. We could use a man of your skill set. What's wrong?
Nothing. Just.
And I do find it a little weird, I was thinking about this, that, you know, considering that they're like friends, it's weird that Jill isn't more concerned. You know, I feel like she should ask questions.
Better. You're the best gunsmith around.
Like she should feel that something's wrong. Obviously, she's got her own priorities, so I'm not really holding it against her. But it is a little weird that she doesn't suspect anything.
Take care, Jill.
That she doesn't think anything of this behavior from him. It's just a little strange to me. We don't need any of this shit.
Take that service alley out in front of the shop, okay? There's keys hanging on the wall.
I don't even care. Do I have... Fine, I guess I'll pick this herb up. So what's interesting is that this section of the game, first I'd like to point out that that building did not exist in 2Make, and I went back after this game came out and played 2Make to see if it actually did. It did not. I was super disappointed. If they had gone back and either added that or it had always been there, I would have given this game extra points for it. But like, this is one of those things where it's like, this is a lock Jill can't pick, but if she could, or if she could pick it from either end, it would open up more exploration, because this place is actually connected to the rest of the game. These areas are connected, but they're artificially blocked off from each other with boxes and barrels that suggests at one point they were meant to be explorable, but for some reason that was cut, perhaps due to rushed development, and instead of remake the areas to change their design, they just threw roadblocks in the way to keep you from going there. There is a mod that removes those, but it's kind of pointless because, you know, you can't do anything there. There's no reason to sequence break, other than to see how Nemesis interacts with that environment, and he does have pathing through all of these areas, even where he wouldn't normally chase you. So again, it further suggests that at one point, fairly late into development, actually, you were meant to explore these areas more thoroughly. Especially because I think even the beginning section of the game is like right around here, you know, like it's all connected and artificially blocked off. There is a semi-open world here that you just can't interact with.
Rocket launcher? Really?
Oh jeez. Oh jeez. Fuck. So again, kind of a disappointing section because it's just this, oh Jesus, this extremely linear chase sequence. I don't think they'll fuck with me. They might try. And there's, if you could interact with this in some way, like, you can down the Nemesis here, but I don't think there's a point. He doesn't drop anything. Because you're not supposed to down him. They just didn't disable the ability to do it.
Are you shitting me? I thought you killed him.
To be fair,
Me too.
there is a section, you know, the very next section, you can fight him, and he does have slightly different pathing behavior with this rocket launcher. And he technically is in stalker mode with the rocket launcher. But I have no idea how this doesn't kill Jill, by the way. It's another situation where it's like, how did that not kill her? Like, how did that explode right next to her and she just gets thrown to the other side? And also, where did the Nemesis go? Like, why, where is he right now at this very moment? He's literally on the other side of these cars. Like, where the fuck did he go? You know, I don't understand. Why did he stop chasing us? This was actually the very first section of the game I saw as a leak when the early copies of this game came out and people were streaming it on Twitch. I saw someone come through here and I was like, wow, this must be like halfway through the game. The city's on fire. That must be so cool. Nemesis shows up and there's a fucking boss fight with him on the rocket launcher. But it's not a boss fight. It's another optional section where, yet again, poor geometry blocking you off artificially from taking a more reasonable route through this place. It's not a boss fight though. It's a gimmick. It's a quick gimmick, an Uncharted-like section that's kind of really silly, but kind of also in place for this game, considering this happens in Resident Evil 1 too. It's a lot less funny, but this does happen in Resident Evil 1 as well. Oh, fuck you. That's bullshit. I take an issue with this section because, like, it transitions from gameplay, it transitions from cutscene to gameplay really quickly, and it just doesn't give you the time to, like, move. Like, it's kind of just a bullshit section. And it's also an interesting section because if you're at low health, it is impossible to escape that. If you're at low health, it's just impossible. Yeah. Oh shit. You were supposed to punch me, asshole, not throw rockets at me. I hear a zombie. You still firing rockets? Yeah. So he's not gonna stop, so I'm not gonna try and fight him when he's doing that. There's no point. And again, there's no real point. Yeah, he fucks off. That's the whole thing. There's no point to that. And then we get another scripted sequence here. And another opportunity for him to kill Jill that he just doesn't take for some reason. Like, okay, hold up. Did that actually straight up just hit her? I think she straight up just got hit by that rocket, right? Like, that's what happened there?
You okay? Go.
Actually, that's weird. I feel like that cutscene played out a little bit differently than I remember, or I blinked and I missed it. But I thought what normally happened is that Jill's on the ground and Nemesis aims at her and it turns red and he just takes this extended amount of time before he actually tries to kill her with it. It's weird. But that is the basic end of our Jill section here. We're going to be transitioning to a Carlos section, and I have mixed thoughts on it. On one hand, I enjoy playing as Carlos. I think it's cool that they gave him more to do. I don't necessarily mind Jill not going to the RPD. I think the Marvin and Brad moment we got was really good. I do think it's incredibly disappointing that the hole in the wall that people were speculating about since RE2 came out in the bathroom, that everyone's like, this absolutely was Nemesis. And we're like, he's going to bust through this wall just like how he used to bust through the window. And then we get to it and it's not that. It's just the most disappointing thing in the world. That's super lackluster, and I feel like that takes a lot of the momentum out of that section for a fan of the series to have that kick in the balls, basically. But I can understand why they maybe did not put the Nemesis in the RPD, because holy shit, how would they make him work in that small environment? I'm not sure he would, without massive changes. And even if they had all the time and budget in the world, they would have had to retroactively change the geometry of the RPD because it just wasn't built to accommodate Nemesis. So I kind of get it, but that doesn't mean he couldn't have shown up in specific parts. That doesn't mean he couldn't have been in the main lobby. It doesn't mean he couldn't have been outside the RPD. Maybe we could have explored more directly outside of it. I don't know. But it's just missed opportunity.
You're learning. The only life that matters is your
luck.
I like that Jill just wants none of Nikolai's shit.
Let's go.
This whole section I think is really good. This scene. Again, you kind of wonder why Nemesis never kills Jill in any of the ways he kills anybody else, but you know, whatever. I like this moment between Nikolai and Mikhail, where Mikhail just calls him on his bullshit.
You worried about teammates?
Mic off.
Or something else? Funny how brainless zombies can ambush a platoon like that. Funny the gate was locked. Don't you think?
What was that? How is this fucker not dead yet?
No, they're gone. Come, this way.
Nikolai, what are you doing?
It's not after you.
Nikolai!
Mic on.
Get off my train. Shit's fired up.
Again, I think that's a really solid section and a pretty good recreation of what happens originally. I think it works. I think the story of this game works really well. It's not perfect, but it works really damn well. The characters are well written, charming, compelling, good relationships between everybody. Tyrell and Carlos, Nikolai and his whole team, Mikhail and Nikolai. And this moment with Brad is basically perfect, and I don't see why there seems to be this idea that because we didn't get Brad and Nemesis, we needed to have Brad and Zombie to get Brad and Marvin, and I don't agree with that. I'm pretty sure we could have had Nemesis kill Brad, and then this moment still happens. He might have killed Brad differently, right? Like, he wouldn't have put a tentacle through his face. But he could have done it,
Come on, man. Not you too.
This is a really good moment. It's so good. This is tragic as shit. It also having Carlos be the one to kill Brad, I don't know.
You stay on the door.
On one hand, it's kind of tragic because he doesn't know Brad. But on the other hand, it's like if Ada killed Marvin in 2, right? Like there's a poetic, tragedy in Marvin being killed by Claire or Leon in 2, and here it's also tragic in a different way, and I don't know if it's better or worse. I don't know, but I appreciate what it is. I like how it is. I don't have any complaints with it. My complaint is in
I thought this was a rescue.
in how he's killed, in how Brad is originally killed and turned into a zombie. That's where my objection comes in.
Remember, Bard had access to Umbrella's darkest secrets. He knows we'll try to keep him under our thumbs.
So this search and rescue mission is really more like find and detain. Right. Good to know.
I'll open the shutter so you can get through.
You stay here and find out what's been going on here at the station.
Call you if I find anything. Hey, be careful.
Yeah. You too, man.
The problem with the Carlos sections on hardcore is that they're just not mechanically interesting because he's basically unstoppable. On the higher difficulties, they add more interesting enemy placements that make this place look really difficult. This is really cheap and lazy and dumb and pointless. I don't even know why they bothered. I guess the idea was they didn't want you trying to take the medals, but like they could have just made them non-interactable. Like, why the fuck would Carlos bother trying to take the medals?
Here's a weird fucking door. Leave it. We're here for bar.
I do like that comment. They added a couple cute comments. And the use of Brad's star card, again, it has kind of the surface level quality of the original game, but without any of the like substance. Because in the original game, it was not just used to get extra ammo, you used it as like a shortcut, as an alternative way through the RPD, right? It saved you some time and some effort if you got it. And you could get it without even fighting the Nemesis, right? You could choose to fight Nemesis, grab the card, and then run. That's not really a thing here, especially on the lower difficulties, because he carries the card. On the higher difficulties, admittedly, the card is not related to Brad, it's downstairs, and so you have a similar idea in place. But because it doesn't do anything... Do you mind? But because the card doesn't do anything other than give you a little bit of extra ammo, it just feels a little bit underwhelming and disappointing. I wonder where that box came from. Who put that fucking box here that Claire and Leon climb over?
T, you copy?
On one hand, I like that they didn't change the codes, but it is a little weird that Carlos can take the items out of all of these places and then they get replaced. It's kind of a weird thing. I would have appreciated if maybe they put the items in slightly different places, or if the combinations were not the same. Which would suggest that someone placed new items there. But, again, it's kind of a little thing that doesn't really make or break the remake. It's just one of those things that, in light of everything else, you know, it's questionable design. That's why I think some of the flaws with 2 were so forgivable, because overall 2 was a really good product. So it's easier to forgive some of the things that are missing as opposed to this game where a lot is missing and a lot of what we got doesn't effectively make... Oh, Jesus. Doesn't effectively make up for it. The section with Carlos is basically just a shooting gallery. There's no real point conserving ammo because it is a limited section. I do like the addition of needing a key to open this room. That's fine. I like that. It's a good change. Unexpected. Again, though, I feel like it would have been an opportunity maybe to use the stars card, right, instead. And save yourself some time or some effort, or just to do something a little bit more interesting than get more ammo. And I guess also an upgrade for your gun, but... And it is a really good upgrade. Because it lets you be more accurate and use more powerful shots without the time. For some reason, I have been able to memorize this code, and also a safe later. Well, actually, I guess I don't memorize it. It's just written on the side in 2. But I can never remember the code to the waiting room in 2 for some reason.
Yeah. Welcome, Leon. Bet you had a kick-ass first day.
Right. So I guess here they're trying to explain the explosives. Why there are explosives in the RPD. But to be honest, I don't... It just doesn't make sense. Like, they couldn't have just routed this differently and had something, even if it's not the Nemesis, just some kind of monster bust through that damn thing. You know, I feel like... I don't know. I feel like if the wall was already damaged, a licker could probably pull it off. I'm not sure if this is a Dead Rising reference. I think that kind of feels like a Dead Rising reference, but I can't... I don't know. So I'm not sure. Again, I don't really have a whole lot of complaints with this section. It's fine. It's just not super interesting because it is just a straight shooting gallery. It's fine. And I think it would be better if the rest of the game as Jill was more open-ended, more horror-themed, more item resource management, more puzzle based, because it would be an interesting dichotomy. But like as it stands, this is just an action shooting gallery, a linear shooting gallery, to break up a linear shooting gallery. You know, it's redundant, it's pointless, right? It's not interesting because it's the same exact thing, except you're doing it with Carlos and an assault rifle. And I don't think that's enough of a difference personally. The hospital section though is pretty good because it is more what the game should be. The hospital is arguably the best part of the game. It is arguably better than the opening, but I like the opening more because what I wanted from this game was always, that city exploration. I didn't really expect to explore a haunted, not haunted, but a horror hospital. Also, nothing ever explains this fucking hole in the wall. Who came in here? When are we gonna play Resident Evil 1, 2.5, where we find out that Marvin, or maybe in Survivors, right? We'll get an Outbreak game, and we find the survivors of Outbreak blew a hole through that wall using another stick of C4 that was somewhere in here. It's just kind of dumb. It was super disappointing to find out that it was just oh Jesus Christ. Oh Jesus, I forgot about this guy. He has not detected me, but sadly I have also missed the opportunity to walk past him. I could use the grenade, but I'd have to get past him twice, so we're just gonna light him up. Oh. Carlos! Oh god. Carlos did not do the punch because he was reloading. Carlos's punch is like really good and arguably much better than Jill's dodge. I forgot about that liquor, I'll be honest. It's also disappointing that Jill never encounters liquors. I feel like she definitely should have. What's the other one we can get access to? Oh, Jesus Christ. Forgot about this guy, too. The fuck are you even doing in here, asshole? There's probably a document that explains why this guy's locked in here, to be honest. Yeah. RIP. 103, which we can't get access to. 208. Again, I feel like you could have used the stars card here, right? Like, I don't know. It says 106 and 109, too.
Mine now.
I think, again, if this game had more time and budget, if Carlos ended up exploring more of the RPD, I think this probably would have been more interesting too, because they really could have done an interesting sort of arrange mode of RE2 using Carlos. But as it stands, this just isn't interesting enough to kind of justify the retread. They don't do anything interesting here with the RPD. They don't let you explore enough of it to be interesting.
Carlos, I've hit a dead end with the terminal here. Gonna head your way.
Copy that.
How he gets here, I mean, because he beats us to this room, doesn't he? How does he get to this fucking room? I feel like I could just throw the flash grenade and run past this shit, but we have the means, so. I will say, these zombies are awfully tanky. Like, Carlos has a fucking assault rifle, but man, it is the world's most worthless assault rifle.
One at a time, take a number.
Alright, fuck this. Fuck. He did not count as an enemy yet because he had not fully come through the door. Go, go, go. Yeah, you can just skip the section by running past that shit. Carlos's assault rifle is, like, insanely weak. Like, I don't understand how he can put so many high caliber rounds in these zombies and they survive, but Jill just needs to use 3 handgun bullets to put them down.
Dr. Bard.
I think Dr. Bard's a good addition. Like, having him here
Don't worry, we're gonna
explaining why there is a vaccine and giving a more concrete reason for Carlos to even think that there is a vaccine at the hospital, that all makes sense. I like these additions.
They're gonna know what to do.
No, negative. RPD's overrun too.
Then figure it out. Umbrella's gone crazy. They're killing all the researchers.
Oh no, he doesn't beat us here.
Who knows how to make the
So he killed the liquor. Okay, sure.
So you can either sit there with your dick in your hand or send somebody who's capable of getting me the hell out of here.
I like him already. Yeah, you would. You heard what he said. We can't turn him over to the company. That's not our call to make. That's Mihail's call. And I'm gonna check the computer, see if I can trace the doc's location.
This will take some time. Look around, see if you can find anything useful.
I do think it's a little weird that the trigger to end this section is you trying to leave the room, because I'm not sure what would motivate you to leave the room outside of, like, having no other options. And I guess maybe that's enough, right? But I don't know. I feel like there's more in here.
Is that Jill in the front row?
I like this framing here of the mystery, of, like, what happened.
Was anyone hurt?
But it's kind of ruined by the fact that we immediately find out what happened. And I guess they didn't necessarily intend this to be a mystery. They just kind of wanted to give you a clever way to tie things back into what Jill's doing.
T, I gotta go.
But,
Do what you gotta. I'll take care of Bard.
I don't know. It seems like a mystery is being framed, but then the mystery's answered right away. And again, it kind of feels like Carlos could have done more there. He could have explored the other part of the RPD to get back out, since his route that he came through was blocked, which also means that Tyrell couldn't have come that way. So yeah, Tyrell had to come another way, so there had to be another way through. Carlos could have gone that route and then left the RPD and gone through the park and explored a little bit more of the city. I guess maybe not encountered the Nemesis, because Nemesis is, like, you know, on fire on the fucking train tracks right now. But it could have given a little bit more substance and added to that mystery a little bit more, as you have to wonder what happened. You're not just as in the dark as Carlos is, because he knows what Jill said, but we don't. But either way, there's that shared desire to find out what happened. But, you know, unfortunately they didn't, and so
Carlos?
this is where the pacing really hits the wall, because we switch back to Jill exclusively for this, like, 2 minutes of quote-unquote exploration, which is walking forward and out of here, and then we do the boss fight, and then we're right back to Carlos. And we're next to the fucking park. We're next to the park, and we're outside of the clock tower. It feels like something's missing, and I don't know how they didn't feel the same way developing this game. In any event, we'll take another break here, and perhaps change our costume as well.